to look at the grooved end. You want the grooved end facing you. Now, two things I want to point out on the grooved end. The curve, the actual curve, and the part that looks like it's kind of just like a little oval, that is called the hilum. That's where he was attached at the ovary wall, right? Have y'all ever shelled peas?
No.
Y'all never gone to your grandma's house and shelled purple hull peas?
No.
You don't know what you're missing out on. That's fun. It's fun to shell peas. Okay, it's snap green beans. Maybe y'all snap green beans. They're good for you, Melissa. You got a family that showed you how to do those things. Shell those peas and snap those green beans. When you shell those peas, you can actually see the little place where it was attached to the inside ovary wall. That's called the hilum, okay? And then I want you to look right above it. There is a teensy-tiny little dot. Y'all see that teensy-tiny little dot on your pea? That teensy-tiny little dot is called the micropyle. Uh-huh. It's labeled up there.
Estamos abriendo
The micropyle is where the pollen tube dug its way into
¿Abrimos o
the
qué? ¿Qué
ovule.
estamos haciendo? ¿Estás viendo este hoyo de aquí?
That's kind of a cool
¿Lo
thing to
miras?
look
Ese
at.
es el
The
micropyle.
that is where the
Pero no lo puedo mirar
pollen
en mi
tube dug
cámara.
its way into the little
I'm
ovule.
gonna try to take a picture.
Okay?
Qué frío.
Now, I want you to take your little
I know how
bean,
your dogs.
and I want the fresh one. I want you to take the fresh bean, and I want you to notice that you've got this papery coating around it, right? It's okay. That papery coating is the seed coat. It protects it. No, take the wet one. Take the wet one. Now, did you just get a little half? Oh, get a whole bean. You only got half a bean.
I think you can see
Yeah, you
it.
can go.
Closer.
I also want you to notice,
Wait, don't move it. I'm
put your
trying to focus
dry
it.
bean up next to your wet bean. Okay, listen. They came out of the same bag of beans. Okay, one wasn't just like gigantic mutated lima beans. Okay? So look, when you soak beans, it softens up that seed coat, that papery seed coat, and the bean swells and takes on water. And that activates some enzymes that causes that baby plant in there to start breaking down the food stored in that bean so that it can grow and germinate. So you plant your little lima beans. Who would want to plant lima beans? I don't know why. They're nasty. Drop them in the dirt. Put the dirt over it. Water them. Why do you water them? It causes the seed to swell. Pops off the seed coat. And the little baby plant is going to be found in there. So I want you to open up your little bean. And I want you to find the little tiny baby plant.
Can we open up the big bean?
The big one. You can't open up the small one. This is the one that's been swollen. The one that's been soaking in water.
Ahí está. Dude, ábrela.
Peel it over that.
You just peel it. You can just use your fingers. You don't need any scissors or anything fancy. Just peel it in half. Do it carefully because we want to keep the plant intact, hopefully.
I'm just using my nails.
We want to separate the halves. All right. So again, you can see the groove that's called the hilum, right? You can see the seed coat, which I've kind of highlighted here in blue as the little papery part that's going to come off. And each half of your bean is called a cotyledon.
Okay.
The cotyledon has some stored food in there for the baby plant. And then up toward the hilum, you should see your tiny baby plant. You should see
Yeah, that's the
a large tip down here. That's called the radicle. That's the root.
Focus.
You should see kind of a middle region that is called the hypocotyl. I'll tell you, the hypocotyl becomes part of the stem. And then you should see two little tiny whitish colored leaves that are called plumules. Okay? Yeah.
I was just gonna, like, when you get a chance, not now, but like after, can you point them out?
Yeah, I'm going to go and do it right. Yeah.
Okay.
We're done talking about it. All right, so look. Here is, on page 139, the same things. Seed coat, cotyledon, radical, hypocotyl, plumule. The radical, the hypocotyl, and the plumule is your baby embryonic plant. Okay? So, you drop it in the dirt, you add some water. The first thing that's going to emerge out of that seed is going to be the new young root called the radical. So the radical produces the root. The hypocotyl is going to start to produce the hypocotyl is going to become the above ground part of the plant. So here comes the hypocotyl emerging out, and then I want you to look at this plant here. Everything below the dirt was produced by the radical. The stem above the dirt was produced by this hypocotyl. I want you to see, here are the two halves of the bean seed right here, the cotyledons. The area below the cotyledons they name the hypocotyl. The area above the cotyledons they call the epicotyl, but really it's part of the stem. And then you have the little leaves. So, what happens to the cotyledons as this plant begins to grow? What happens to their size? Do the cotyledons get bigger or do they get smaller? They get smaller. Why do the cotyledons get smaller?
He used up the stored food.
Used up the stored food, but now what does the guy have to do now that he's used up all of his stored food? How's he going to do that?
Photosynthesis.
We now have leaves. So once we start to have leaves here, are the cotyledons needed anymore?
No.
They drop off. And then now the plant can go on and do his own little photosynthesis, make his own little food, and everybody's happy.
So if the cotyledons drop off, they can't reproduce that
No,
way.
there's no cotyledons. This is just a temporary, thing.
Okay.
Once it's used up, they shrivel
It's
up as
gone.
they're being used, they fall off, they
Okay.
drop off. Okay, any questions on those parts? If you have any questions on your bean, I'll come by. Sometimes the beans don't split properly, so if you're having trouble finding the parts,
Ours only has
there's your radical.
Okay.
Okay, so open them up. This is the part that's sticking out. Okay, pop them open. You're good. Yep. This is the radical.
Okay.
That's the hypocotyl kind of in the middle. Those are your